Hey everybody, Leanne here from Jada Blossom, and it's time for our January release. Yay! Hey, so I'll be using the Love You Lots stamp set. It's brand new. I'll be using the fancy heart dies that are beautiful, and I'll be using those today on this little card set. I'm also using our scalloped, not stitch square dies, sorry, the scallop square dies. And that's about, well, I'll be adding something a little later, but that's what I've got so far. I'm also using the Love Struck pad from We Are Memory Keepers, but any pad will do. You can mix and match papers all the time. This is Hibiscus Burst from Paper Tray Ink, and I cut it at 4.25 by 8.5. I'm scoring it at 4 1/4 and 2 1/8. I'm going to be making S Fold cards today. So a heart die is perfect when it's perfectly symmetrical, which ours are. It's perfect for making these S Fold cards. So I thought, why not? I'll make a little S Fold card set for Valentine's Day. And it's super easy. I'm using my Teflon bone folder, my Martha Stewart scoreboard, but you could use any scoreboard. But I do recommend a Teflon bone folder because you just can't get better than that. They're awesome. You'll notice that I'm also working on my Stampin' Up! Pad again. It's just what I do for videos. Now you're going to fold it in and then fold it out. So you're making like a little S fold. So super easy. See? There we go. And I've already cut out my pattern paper. That is 2 inches by 4 1/8. So I'm giving 1/8 of an inch border is what I'm looking at. And I'll be applying the striped paper to the folded area, the folded part. And I'll do this to all the cards. I'm just going to show you on one, I believe. But like I said, I'll just do it on the one card. And I'm using my ATG gun to attach these. There we go. And I'm placing, you don't really have to decorate the inside, but I like to. So there we go. Now there's my pattern paper. And I cut that out using the scalloped square die. And I'm going to line that up on the inside. Now I'll be making myself a little area to write on, so don't worry about that. But I just like the contrast of that. So there we go. So now I've got all my things cut out. So these are my pattern papers. I cut out the background pieces. The foreground hearts are cut out of pure poppy cardstock from Paper Tray Ink. And the dies cut like butter like always. I always use my Gemini to cut them out. So now I'm using my craft tacky glue from Stampin' Up! And I'm just going to glue around the edge. You know, easy peasy stuff. Now, I really like this one with the heart cutouts because it gives you a lot of beautiful little heart confetti with stitching and without that you can use for your cards. And I'm probably going to put all my leftovers in the envelope with the die. So if I need some red hearts, I'll have some. So might as well. Don't want to throw out your scraps all the time. There we go. So I am just going to be layering these. So one of them's fancy with all the twirls and one has the cutout hearts. So I do go ahead and make 6 of these cards, 3 of each. I chose the patterns and the colors basically from one pad. So the nice thing about that is you know that everything goes together. The polka dotted backgrounds, I just wanted something not so busy to go behind the focal image, which is that cutout heart. But I want, like you could have chosen a solid cardstock behind them. They would have looked beautiful that way too, but I wanted a little bit of pattern. So that's what I went for here today. There we are. So now I'm just sticking them down. So like I said, easy peasy stuff. And I go ahead and I do that to all the hearts. You notice I even chose green because green is in the stripe pattern. And I know that's not really a Valentine's Day color, but you know what the heck, we'll throw that in the mix, right? So there we are. Just add a couple of dots on the interior and I'll add it to my polka dotted green heart this time. So I'm using my EK Success tweezers just to get my fingers out of the way as much as I can. But there we go. So super easy. Now you'll see that Stampin' Up! Glue is being held by my Make It by Marco little glue holder. So now I'm going to be lining up these hearts on my S fold. And what you do is you're going to tape the left-hand side of your heart, and I use the little dip in the heart to line it up in the little point at the bottom, and I line it up with the fold. So it's super easy to get centered. So obviously you only want to put glue on the one side, or you're going to have the whole thing stuck down. But that's what I do. So like I said, I'm using my ATG gun because I find this is pretty easy to line up. But you could easily use liquid glue too. and I have done that in the past. I've even popped it up in the past, you know, on the one side. You can do that too. But I chose just to keep things flat because I will add some dimension a little later. So there we go. So I really like these We Are Memory Keepers papers in this pad. It's an older pad. I like how their papers are like really nice and thick, and they've got, some of them have some glitter. I hate flimsy paper. That's one of my biggest pet peeves in card making. I like to have like some good heft to my paper. I really don't like that really lightweight. It's got to be beautiful for me to use it if it's really, really lightweight. Just because, you know, you can easily get little creases in it, and it just doesn't look as nice. I like it to be, like I said, needs to have some heft to it. So there we go. So I am loving this release so far. It has just, the sentiments from the stamp set from today are beautiful. So are the stencils. I just didn't use them today, but beautiful. So there we go. So now I have my Hibiscus Burst hearts cut out also. So that is where I'm going to be writing. So on the back of these stitched circles, I put some ATG tape. I line it up with my one in the front. This is how I get them centered so they don't show. And then I'm going to close the back and pick up the taped heart. So there we go. So now it's lined up and it's hidden when it's closed. I'll do one more. So I'm just going to apply the ATG tape to the back of that stitched heart. I'm going to line up the front of it with the back of the one that's, you know, on the fold. I'm going to flip it shut, and there we are, and it's perfectly aligned. There we go. So now I'm going to be stamping up some sentiments, and I'm doing freehand stamping today because I thought, what the heck? So I'm using an anti-static powder tool, my Ink on 3 Juicy ink. And like I said, I'm just an acrylic block, and I'm going to be stamping the Be Mine sentiment from the beautiful stamp set Love You Lots. I love the beautiful fonts. They're gorgeous. And this is just a strip of vellum paper. It is whirlwind vellum, so it's a little bit thicker, but you know, most, like any vellum would probably do. I just wanted an opaque surface, and I love heat embossing on vellum. It just goes so quickly. I love it. So I'm using Ranger's Detail White embossing powder, and I'm just you know, pouring it over my embossed or my stamped sentiments and into a coffee filter. There we are. I'm just showing you what it is. And then I'm going to melt that embossing powder using my Marvy heat tool. Any heat tool will work. This is just the one I've had for years, and it's perfectly fine and dandy. There we go. You don't want to get your fingers in the way. I burned mine a little bit. Usually when the biggest problem about embossing for me when I'm filming is that I'm worried I'm going to melt something I don't want to melt, like, you know, my camera, you know, anything important in my craft room other than the actual embossing powder. So I'm trying to be careful. And of course I burnt my thumb a little bit. So you got to be careful using your heat tools. So there we go. So now I've got my little sentiment. Now you could cut out your vellum with a die. Now you'd want to do that before you stamp on it. And I just find it hard to line up, and then, you know, the embossing powder gets cut in the little crevices, but you do not want to do it afterwards because it can scratch your embossing powder and make it not look as nice. So I decided to go with just freehand cutting myself a little flag to mini staple on to this card base. I'm trying to think where it's going to go. There we are. And I'm using my little mini stapler. I think it's a Ranger or Tim Holtz mini stapler. Is it? No, it's actually close to my heart. Sorry, guys. It's a close to my heart mini stapler. So I'm just going to line this up, and I'll pop a couple of staples in through the first layer of that little fold. And I don't mind if they show on the other side because it's the back side. It's hidden. And they're clean staples. So I know a lot of people don't like that, but it doesn't bother me. There we are. So isn't that pretty so far? So I'm going to do that to all the cards, and we'll be back to do some embellishing. So I'm using my Trinity Stamps Crafty Love Heart Sprinkles Mix, and I'm just taking the white ones out, sort of like the miniature white ones. And I'm going to apply one white clay heart to each sentiment with a little dab of craft tacky glue from Simon Says. So easy peasy stuff. I'm using my Studio Katia embellishment wand to pick it up. and pop it into the glue. And I'll do that with all 6 of these cards. So, you know, easy, easy stuff. When you're assembly lining it, you don't want to make things too tricky for yourself because you're just going to drive yourself crazy. So it's best to come up with a simple design and then you can go ahead and recreate it. And like I said, this design, you could use, you know, any pad of paper. You could actually choose your own papers if you really wanted to, but I really like to use pads when you're using patterns to go together. It just makes things easy for yourself. At least I find it. You know, not that I'm, you know, I guess I'm a little challenged at picking stuff that matches perfectly. So I noticed that, you know, when you're using a pad, you can't really go wrong, right? It's already all chosen for you. They've done the work. So you might as well use it. That's the way I like to do things. There we go. So I've got a quick card set here, and I'm going to add my last little clay heart to the mix. And pretty, just pretty. These would make great shaker cards too, maybe later in the week. We'll see what happens. So now I'm going to be popping up. These are the cutout hearts that came from the center of that heart die. And I'm going to pop them up using my Stampin' Up! Dimensionals, the miniature ones. And I'm going to put 2 on the lower right and 1 on the upper left. And, you know, simple stuff, like I said. And that'll just give it a little bit of dimension. I already have a lot of texture going on from the dies and, you know, the vellum and the embossing. So I've got a lot of interest going on. So you might as well, you know, you can pop something up. So there we go. So now the only thing that's missing is a sentiment. So I'm going to use the Clear Jar Valentine add-ons. And I'm stamping with VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And I'm stamping the sentiment, wishing you a sweet Valentine's Day. And I'll stamp that in the center of the heart. And then I'm also going to stamp the little tiny XOXO beside it. Because, you know, why not? Super cute stuff. So there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and do this to all 6 cards. And see, you don't need a Misty. You just kind of need a Misty. You know what I mean? You can do it freehand, but if things don't line up perfectly and you've got to restamp, you're really in a pickle. Anyways, thank you so much for stopping by today. Be sure to come by tomorrow to see what I've got for you, because this release is going on all week. And make sure to head on over to the Jaded Blossom blog to see all the inspiration from the other design team members, because they're awesome. Thanks, everyone. Bye.